Hi everyone and welcome to a new episode of I Love Cinema. It's as always about LFF, the London Film Festival, the BFI London Film Festival, and I will be talking about the films that I've seen over the last week. And the last two iterations of I Love Cinema have also been covering the London Film Festival. You can check that out on YouTube. Sorry guys, I've just got in, so I still need to hydrate and stuff, and it's cold outside, so definitely need a hot cup of tea. I think I've got about like 12 films I'm going to be talking about today. If you can't find I Love Cinema on YouTube, just go hashtag I Love Cinema, all one word. As you can see here, hashtag I Love Cinema. Just search for that on YouTube and it will come up. And the last two videos, I think they're roughly 2 hours each, will be covering everything that I have seen from at the London Film Festival. Don't worry about the videos being mega long, because yes, they are mega long. I still can't believe that I actually managed to talk for 2 hours straight by myself, because I do not have a co-host for this one. I usually don't really have a co-host. There was just one episode where I once had one of my mates here. But yeah, 2 hours long. But if you go into the description of those videos, it will tell you exactly which film it's covering and at what time index you can find that particular film in that particular video. So it's really easy to navigate. You basically just have to go like on the time slider. That's all it is. So that is available for both of the videos, where it will give you an overview of the films that it covers, and if you're interested in any of them, you can just go to whichever time code I put in the description and just find out what I thought of the film. And all of that is obviously spoiler free, because I hate it when people spoil stuff, so I really don't want to do that myself. So the big one, the first one I want to talk to you about today is The Favorite. You probably can't see that. Sorry, it's like white balance. I can't really do anything on the video about that. It's all automatic. It's called The Favorite, and we just had the red carpet premiere for it. It stars Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz, Emma Stone, and it's the new. Actually, let me have a look. It's the new film. Sorry, my voice is still a bit rubbish because I had a cold. By Yorgos Lanthimos, who is the guy that made The Lobster, which also starred Rachel Weisz, and she decided to work with him again, and I can't fault her. Not that I'm a huge fan of The Lobster, but The Favorite is absolutely fantastic. I watched it this morning, and it was very, very unsuspecting, hilariously funny and entertaining. It's a period piece, as you can see, like everyone is wearing like period garb. That always sounds so weird, right? It's like women, period, God, you know what I mean. It's set in the early 18th century, and England is at war with France, and we have Queen Anne, who's played by Olivia Colman. She's in very poor health. She's been in poor health, I think, pretty much all her life. Finds her relying on her doting friend Lady Sarah, who is played by Rachel Weisz. And then Sarah's cousin Abigail shows up, and she's played by Emma Stone. And she arrives at the palace, and her charm soon wins the queen's attentions, and the shrewd girl sees a way to restore her social status lost through her father's disastrous wagers. With stakes of the heart high, the two women soon become rivals to the queen's affections in a wickedly funny game of one-up womanship. And that pretty much sums up what The Favorite is all about. It's about these three leading ladies, and they're all fantastic. I mean, Olivia Colman is brilliant, Rachel Weisz is brilliant, Emma Stone is brilliant, and they work together in, it's not a surprise, it's kind of like a love triangle going on there, which you would usually see, especially in this kind of like time period, with at least one man in the mix, you know. And this time it is three women, and obviously everyone is doting for the affection of the queen because she's the most powerful person in the land, and women are attracted to power, right? We're all attracted to power, we're all attracted to money because we want to have a better life, and so everyone is kind of like attracted to the queen. for ulterior motives, obviously. So it's really interesting to see that, oh, 3 women there instead of like 2 men and a woman or 2 women and a man. I found that very surprising. But what was really surprising, and which I think won everyone over, is the really sharp dialogue. So witty, so well written. It is laden with subtext. It's absolutely brilliant. And the way that all the actors, but especially the 3 leading ladies, they just take it and then enhance it even more just because of how brilliant they are at what they do. And it gives the film an entertainment factor that I don't think I've ever seen in a film like that. Like I was getting ready for like, okay, it's a period drama, but I want to see these amazing actresses. That's the main reason why I wanted to see the film. I didn't really know what it was going to be about. And then within the first 2 minutes or something, it sets the tone of what it's going to be. And I was like, is this going to be a comedy? This is like laugh out loud funny. This passes the 6 laugh test easily. This passes like the 12 laugh test. It's like there's a laugh pretty much every 5 minutes, something like that, and the film runs for 2 hours. It's really well done, and it's well structured. The narrative, the characters are quite interesting, considering that this was like 200-300 years ago. These characters are very relatable in what they strive for, in what they have to deal with, the obstacles that they have to overcome, especially because obviously the 3 main leads are women, and back then it was even worse than it is nowadays, and nowadays it isn't great either. So it's something that is perfectly relatable. And it's also done, like all the other characters as well, very, very well done, very interesting, very funny. Everyone's having a lot of fun with the script, the sides, the characters and settings that they're given. And you can tell because the whole film is just a joy to watch from start to finish. And what makes it really relatable is that all of these characters, they have flaws and insecurities and idiosyncrasies and annoyances and all of that stuff. They feel like real grounded people. And even the queen, obviously, she's like the most powerful person in the country. But she has things that she wants and can't have, or needs and yearns and whatever, right? So and obviously she's also quite annoying and insecure and funny. Well, to an extent, it's more a movie that is funny for the audience. Obviously, it's not funny for the characters. The characters obviously take everything very seriously, but it is almost like a bit of a sadistic comedy for the viewer, because people go through a lot of shit, and there's a lot of situational comedy that is horrendous for the people that go through it, but to the viewer it's absolutely hilarious. And there's like a lot of like it's a Schadenfreude fest pretty much, and you can feel for these people. And I especially like I've never really been a huge fan of Emma Stone, but I really like what she's doing here, how she seems to come from nothing. And she starts out on the lower rungs in the palace because she has no choice. And then she climbs the ladder, so to speak, because she is resilient and she won't be, kept down. And it's just a really great portrayal of the unrelenting willpower of a young woman. But you also see how nasty these women can get and the lengths that they go to achieve their goals. And like I said, it's laden with subtext. There's like so much stuff going on. Like people say one thing, but they know exactly what they're saying underneath. So it's not just the subtext is obvious to the viewer, it's also to the characters. And it just makes it so much fun. And you can just tell that everyone just had a lot of fun with it. Obviously Emma Stone, Rachel Weisz, already Oscar winners. I think Olivia Colman is not far behind, because while they're all really good, it's definitely Olivia Colman that shines as Queen Anne. Because she's such a volatile character. She's supposedly the most powerful person. And yet you can't help but feel really sorry for her and feel like she's almost the weakest of them all. And it's also the physicalities that Olivia Colman has to portray, because Queen Anne was suffering from a lot of physical disabilities. She's got gout, and I think later on in the film she even has like a stroke. And I really wanted to ask Olivia Colman is like how she approached that, how she did that, whether there's any kind of prosthetics that helped her achieve that look, because it was amazing, that change. And it's just, yeah, I love it. The favorite is what it says. My favorite. The favorite film for me so far in the festival. And I think that was a title that I would have given to Nicole Kidman's new film, Destroyer, because that destroyed me. It was so powerful when I watched it. It was a brilliant performance by Nicole Kidman. I'll be talking more about this later. But now it's been taken over by the favorite, just because even though it's quite tragic and some horrendous stuff that happens there, obviously the backdrop is the England-France war in the 18th century. But it's just so much fun. It's ridiculous how much joy you can get from a movie like this, where people are basically just trying to one-up each other and oust each other and just be nasty and horrible to each other. But it's just so much fun to watch. It's absolutely brilliant. I highly recommend it. Like, if you get a chance to watch it at London Film Festival, go and do it. If you miss it, don't worry. It comes out, I think, in January here in the UK. So it's not too long to go. It's just like 2 or 3 months to go. But definitely put this one on your list, because it's an absolute must-see. And for me, obviously, it was a must-see because we don't just get one amazing leading lady. We get 3 amazing leading ladies. And all these characters are really well thought out, and they have depth and weaknesses and are strong despite their weaknesses. And they're just fully fleshed out characters. And obviously the actresses do a marvelous job in bringing them to life. And it's just, yeah, I was just wowed. Like, the only word that really sums it up is wow. I didn't expect to like this film as much as I did. I thought I was going to go, like, yeah, the acting was good, but everything else was like, I wouldn't want to see it again. However, I can't wait to see this again. It is so fantastic. So much fun. The audience, like, it was, I wanted to say it was sold out, but it was a press screening, but there was no seat left. Everyone wanted to see this. Everyone was having a lot of fun. People were going crazy for it afterwards. There was a lot of laugh out loud moments. It's just impeccable. Absolutely impeccable. What they've created here. So this is definitely an absolute highlight you can't miss. If you're missing it at London Film Festival, make sure you put it on your list when it comes out next year, because you gotta see this. This is going to be in the Oscar race, I tell you. There's no way that this is going to be overlooked for the Oscars. Definitely for Olivia Colman, maybe for the other 2 as well, because this film is absolutely fantastic. And it fits right into the current movement, you know, with like strong female characters and female leads and having more female roles in a film. And here you get 3 female leads. There's not really a male lead in this film, which is quite nice. So I absolutely loved it. Hey, Tom Duke, welcome. I'm just gushing over the favorite and pretty much telling everyone to go and see it. So Olivia Colman is absolute ace, as is Rachel Weisz, as is Emma Stone. If you want to see great female characters, go and see it. If you want to see something funny, go and see it. You want to see a period piece, go and see it. I basically can't think of anything why you won't see it. Well, unless if you're like into an action blockbuster, then this is not the movie for you. But if you're looking for easy entertainment, go for it. Comedy, go for it. Acting, go for it. Cinematography looks great. The costumes are fantastic. It's a lot of fun. Oh, and it's also very expletive. There's a lot of swearing in this. Emma Stone does a lot of slapstick, which I thought was amazing. She was so dead on with stuff like that. So everyone really surprised me, even though I knew that obviously Olivia Colman is great, Emma Stone is great, Rachel Weisz is great, but they all still managed to surprise me with how amazing they were. So I highly recommend it. There's no way you can miss this movie. Absolutely no way. Go and make sure you see The Favorite. And with that, I'm going to talk about number 2. I try to sort this out in a program now to make it a bit easier. This is actually Destroyer that I was talking about a few minutes ago. The film that was my favorite until I've seen The Favorite today. This is the new movie starring Nicole Kidman, who you can see here. And she looks quite different. I assume that this is like, there's a lot of prosthetic makeup there. She's made to look really old and ragged. So let's see. As a fledgling cop, LAPD detective Erin Bell, played by Nicole Kidman, and her partner were placed undercover in the California desert to infiltrate a notorious criminal gang led by terrifyingly unstable frontman Silas. Still reeling from the trauma of her experience years later, Erin is forced to confront her demons when signs indicate that Silas has re-emerged. Reluctantly delving back into the painful facts of the investigation, she goes in search of the remaining members of his posse, determined to learn Silas's whereabouts and finally close the case that almost destroyed her. That's roughly what this is about. Oh, hello, welcome to ILoveCinema. I'm just talking about Destroyer, the new film with Nicole Kidman. Spoiler free, I'm not spoiling any of the films that I'm watching, that I've watched at London Film Festival. So welcome to ILoveCinema. So that is the rough gist of what the film is actually about. What is amazing about Destroyer, aside from Nicole Kidman just being absolutely phenomenal, is that the narrative, it's not immediately obvious what you're watching. Like, you know that she's an LAPD detective, and you think it's like, oh, there's a new case that she's going to be dealing with, and let's see how that goes. But then what the film does is it actually jumps in between the previous case into that Silas guy and the current case into the Silas guy. And it's not immediately apparent what it does. And the way that the film goes about it is really clever, and I'm not going to give anything away there. With a payoff that I didn't see coming, and I love that, because most of the time I see it coming from a mile away. Which is quite a bit annoying, but in Destroyer I didn't see it coming. And all the actors actually are really, really good in this. Who else is in it? Let's see. So it was Nicole Kidman, Sebastian Stan, and Tatiana Maslany. And that's the other thing. It's like, if you follow me on Twitter or on Instagram, you probably have seen that every film that I watch at the London Film Festival, I put like a little image of the poster up. And then I put like a little summary of my initial thoughts on the film without spoiling anything. And one of the things that really surprised me in Destroyer, obviously, no matter what Nicole Kidman looks like, you can always tell that is Nicole Kidman, right? Even though she looks like shit in the film, yeah? She's supposed to be like at the end of her tether and like had a really bad night and had a bunch of really bad years and all of that stuff, and she looks like it. She looks like she's fucked up from head to toe and back, you know, and she plays that wonderfully. It's amazing to watch, and she's still captivating and mesmerizing and lively to an extent, even though she is constantly exhausted in the film, and she does that so well. I loved seeing her. I loved watching her. It was absolutely fantastic. And then on top of that, it's like, once the movie was over, and you know how the credits start rolling, and then I saw the name Tatiana Maslany, and I'm a huge fan of Tatiana Maslany's. If you don't know who she is, I think did she win a Globe and an Emmy, or did she just win an Emmy? But she did a TV show called Orphan Black, in which she plays one of a series of clones. So she ends up playing like, 10 different characters or something. And they are so wildly different. It's absolutely crazy how she does it. Like, you can always immediately tell which clone she's playing. And even when she's playing a clone who's pretending to be another clone, you can tell that as well. She is just a phenomenal chameleon of an actress. It's crazy. So after Destroyer, the credits started rolling. And I saw her name and I was like, Tatiana Maslany is in it? Who the fuck was Tatiana Maslany? And I thought back on the film, and there's only really 2 female characters in the film, like high-profile characters. And there's the other character is called Petra. And I was like, she must have been Petra. I was like, Oh, yeah. And she is such a chameleon, because I'm usually quite good at recognizing actors in their roles, no matter like how much of a chameleon they are, how much they like disappear into the role. I usually can tell if it's someone that I'm very familiar with. But with her, I had no idea. And she has some great scenes with Nicole Kidman, like some standout scenes to me, where it was just like one woman versus the other. Not necessarily a versus scene, but you know, it's like a duologue together. And it was some of the most powerful stuff in the film, and there's a lot of that. And I was like, yeah, that was Tatiana Maslany, and I didn't even recognize her. That's how amazing she is. So if you like her, you have to go and see it. If you like Nicole Kidman, you have to go and see it. If you like anything to do with cops, I think you need to watch it. It's a great drama. It's also very tragic. It also gets a bit violent, so if you have a problem with that, maybe not the best film for you. But I think because of the performances, you really got to check this one out. It's absolutely amazing. It creates a brilliant atmosphere, and you're trying to figure out what's going on with Erin, because she has this air of hopelessness around her, but yet there's still something boiling underneath, and you're trying to figure it out. And the film at the end will basically give you the entire picture. It's like a big puzzle piece, and put it together, and then you will understand, and you're like, oh my god, you just blew my fucking mind. That's how amazing it is. Hey intern, how you doing? Welcome to ILoveCinema. I'm just talking about Nicole Kidman's new film Destroyer, spoiler free. That was screening at, or still is screening actually. There's another screening on Saturday. So in case you haven't seen Destroyer yet, you can still check it out on Saturday at 8:45 p.m. if you can still get tickets. Because this is one of the hot tickets for the festival, trust me on that. That's why it was my favorite before I actually seen the favorite today. Absolutely brilliant, just from the structure, the editing, the whole plot, how the reveals work, how everything comes together. The performances are fantastic. I also like the cinematography, the way that stuff is shot. It looks absolutely phenomenal. And once everything is being put in place at the end and you understand what you've just seen, maybe it won't blow your mind, but it wowed me. I didn't see it coming. I was like, oh my god, this is so amazing. And then it's also quite tragic, and you know, it's absolutely phenomenal. I really, really love this film. I wouldn't be surprised if Nicole Kidman gets nominated for an Oscar again for this one. Not just because she goes ugly, whereas this whole thing's like, oh, she put on a prosthetic nose and she got an Oscar for The Hours. But this one is like such a heartbreaking performance as a cop. Hey Ali, how you doing? And she floored me. She absolutely floored me. And I know that Nicole Kidman's really good, but I think this is her most gutsy performance I've ever seen. And she's done a few gutsy ones, but this one really wowed me. So definitely put Destroyer on your list. You're not going to regret it. Okay, let's see. No, that was number 2. Let's see, number 3. Oh, next one is... Right, this one doesn't have a title on the image, but this movie is a UK film called Wild Rose, and it stars Jessie Buckley. If you don't know who Jessie Buckley is, this is Jessie Buckley. She was the lead in Beast, which was out this summer here in the UK. I think it was this summer. A phenomenal little indie title that is very, very unsettling and fascinating, and she was like the standout star in it. That's how I know her name for Wild Rose, which is the main reason why I went to see Wild Rose, because the name Jessie Buckley was attached to it, and I was like, that's okay, the lady from the Beast. And she doesn't disappoint. She's absolutely phenomenal in Wild Rose, and like I said, no spoilers. Let's see what it says this is about. To write a country song, you need 3 chords and the truth. That's 3 chords and the truth. According to songwriter Harlan Howard's famous truism. But is it really that simple if you're a Glaswegian single mom fresh out of prison and with no job? 23-year-old Rosalind Harlan, played by Jessie Buckley, is a chaotic burst of incorrigible bad behavior, charisma, and an electrifying set of vocal cords. Electrifying. All she has ever wanted is to sing country music, and she's convinced she can only do that in Nashville. So that's pretty much what the synopsis is. It doesn't really tell you much, but as you've heard, she was in prison. So she's just been released from prison. I can't remember how long she was in there. I think it was 12 months. Very short stint for something really silly and stupid. But so she's a jailbird. So she comes out. She actually has 2 children. Her mom takes care of her kids. And she comes out, and all she can think of, like, immediately she walks around, like she walks through Glasgow in full-on country get-up, you know, with the boots and the hat and just everything. And you're like, what the heck's going on, right? And then it turns out that she actually has 2 young children who live with her mother because she's just been in jail for 12 months. And all she seems to be interested in is getting back to country music. So she gets a little, those little things you get on your feet, you know, when you're under house arrest. Hey Sigam, how you doing? I'm just talking about Wild Rose. I've seen that at the London Film Festival. Spoiler free, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything. So she's got this, like, this weird little ankle bracelet tracer thingy that they put on you so you're not leaving the house. So she can't leave the house between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., which is obviously a problem because she used to be a singer in a bar or in a club or whatever that deals with country music. And obviously that stuff happens in the evening, so she can't do that. And also they've already given away her job to someone else, so she's not very happy, so she's quite hopeless. And she's like, what the fuck am I going to do now? And she's trying to find a job because she has to take care of her kids, she has to get an apartment, all of that stuff. So she ends up working as a cleaning lady for some rich person. And that rich person ends up kind of helping her for whatever reason. And that's as much as I'm going to say about it. And it's all about relationships and dreams and hopes and consequences and responsibilities, especially because obviously she has 2 kids. And how are you going to bring all of that together? How are you going to realize your dream when you can't really just up and go to Nashville because you've got 2 kids you need to take care of? You need to have a job so you can rent your apartment so that 2 kids can live in there. And it's just what she does in order to, you know, to get somewhere or to go on with her life. And it's just really interesting how she goes about that and how her priorities change and all of that stuff. And one of the first things that I was thinking after I'd seen it, first and foremost, this is one of the highlights of the London Film Festival, I think. This is such a feel-good film. It's kind of like The Favourite, but whereas The Favourite is a very dark comedy, which is entertaining for the audience, but it is very dark, and could potentially be, like, it's a bit mean-spirited, so to speak. I think I said it's like, not abusive, what was the word? It's like sadistic comedy for the audience, but not fun for the characters. Whereas Wild Rose is just such an uplifting, life-affirming, hopeful, beautiful story that is hilarious and tragic and entertaining, just all because of Jessie Buckley, because she is just so phenomenal. It's absolutely insane how charismatic she is, how electrifying, how captivating. And I didn't know this woman can sing, and I'm not a fan of country music, but holy hell, can she sing? And I enjoyed every little bit of country music that I've heard in this film. I sat through the entire end credits because I loved the music so much. And I don't even like country music. That's how good this is. And she's Cot Boact. Hey, Cot, is that the name? How you doing? I'm talking about Wild Rose. I've seen that a few days ago at the London Film Festival. All spoiler free. And yeah, she's got a set of pipes on her, and she can sing. She can just belt it out, and just electrify a room, and it's just phenomenal to see it. And if you have seen my spoiler-free review of A Star is Born, I think I did that 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. I loved A Star is Born because I think Lady Gaga is just amazing when she starts belting out that song that can fill a church. Like, she can sing a cappella and everyone's like, wow. And she can do the same thing. And and both of these films are kind of like underdog stories, people that aren't coming from the right side of the track and have an easy go at trying to make their dreams come true. So they're both underdog stories, which is something that I love. But whereas A Star is Born is like the Hollywood version that is a bit emotionally distant and a bit maybe pop arty or something, the UK version, Wild Rose, is intimate and emotional and all about the relationships and the people, and not very stylistic. It's all gritty and real and powerful, you know, all the emotions, all the feels. And that's why I love Wild Rose. I think it's a phenomenal film because Jessie Buckley just incorporates, like, it embodies this character of was it Raylan? What was her name? Rosalind so well that she's someone, she calls a spade and an asshole, you know. She swears a lot and there's a lot of unintentional comedic beats happening because of the way she talks, because of the way that she is. She is, you know, she's a working class girl, and that has a charm of its own, right? But she also has more than just a talent. She's got some skills. It's crazy. And it's just really beautiful to see that. And then the film is kind of like following certain bullet points and checkpoints and checklists. And you could go, it's like, oh, it's going like the old romantic fairy tale thing. Not romantic, the old fairy tale thing. It's like the new boss turns into like the fairy godmother and makes things happen and stuff. But, you know, the film is so much more than that. So let that surprise you. Don't think you know where the film is going, because I thought I had figured out where the film is going. And then it went, nah, gotcha, Mel. I'm not going where you think I'm going. And that made it even more fun. So definitely check out Wild Rose. If you like country music, you have to see it. If you like anything to do with like an artist trying to make it, overcoming obstacles, if you like a good underdog story, you have to go and see it. If you like A Star is Born, no matter which version, but especially if you like the Gaga version, check out Wild Rose, because it's pretty much the same thing, just made in the UK, made in Scotland. And it's phenomenal. And Jessie Buckley is amazing. Clicked Pem. Hi, how are you? Thanks for watching I Love Cinema. I was just gushing over Wild Rose starring Jessie Buckley. So yeah, go and check this out because it's phenomenal. I'm not sure what's the general release. I'm not actually sure what the general release for this one is. You can still check it out not tomorrow, on Saturday. There's another screening of Wild Rose on Saturday. So if you haven't seen the film, try and get tickets for that. It's so worth it. It's such a feel-good film. Whether you like country music or not, because I sure as heck don't. And I loved the movie. I absolutely loved it. And I love Jessie Buckley. And she's on my list, you know, that infamous list of people where if your name's on it, no matter what the project is, what the film is that you bring out, what the TV show is that you're in, I'm going to watch it just because you're on that list. And Jessie Buckley's on that. Okay, so that was Wild Rose. Now we have The Old Man and the Gun, which I think is here. Okay, so Old Man and the Gun is potentially famous. Hey, for Anne's sake or sake? I'm thinking of rice wine. I don't know. Welcome. I'm talking about The Old Man and the Gun, which could potentially be Robert Redford's last film ever. He's officially announced that he's going to retire from acting. I know that a lot of people do that, right? I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis says every 2 years that he's going to retire from acting, and then 5 years later it's like, here I am with another Oscar contender. So I don't know if this is actually going to be Robert Redford's last film. This is what we've been told so far. I didn't know that before I went in. I only found out after when I did a bit of research. So I was like, oh, that's a bit sad. Let's see, The Old Man and the Gun. What is this actually about? So it's adapted from David Grant's New Yorker article, The Old Man and the Gun. And it tells the story of Forrest Tucker, played by Robert Redford, the self-styled Houdini, whose many audacious prison breaks included an Alcatraz flight in a homemade kayak, and whose last robbery was committed when he was 79. Focusing on Tucker's crime spree with his geriatric band of brothers, the Over-the-Hill Gang, who long evaded both the FBI and an increasingly frustrated detective, John Hunt, played by Casey Affleck. This is a brilliantly entertaining crime caper, and I could not agree more. This film is absolutely brilliant. It's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. And like Wild Rose lives off Jesse Buckley, The Old Man and the Gun lives off Robert Redford and his charismatic smile. Because you've probably seen something similar to this, or you've heard of this. It's like he robs banks notoriously, and he has a gun because obviously it's called The Old Man and the Gun, right? But the way he does it is like he never really hurts anyone. He walks into the bank with a little briefcase, and he's like, "Hi, I would like to withdraw some money. Hey there, something actors, how you doing?" Talking about The Old Man and the Gun, which might potentially be Robert Redford's last film, as he's announced he's going to retire from acting. So Tucker always walks into a bank pretty much nonchalant, as if he's, a customer, because basically even a bank robber is a customer, right? And he just walks over to the till and is really nice and a gentleman and charming and goes like, "I have a gun here. I would like to withdraw some money, so if you can just fill in this briefcase, I'll be on my way. And don't you worry, I don't really want to hurt anyone." And he does it in such a charming way over and over and over again that you understand why people just hand over the money. Because people are scared. I think one of the tellers even goes like, "Oh my God, it's my first day today." It's like, speaking of horrible first days. And he is just so lovely and charming and a gentleman, and he's got manners, and he's not aggressive or violent or anything. And he just gets away with it. So afterwards, "Hey JFK, how you doing?" JFK is watching ILoveCinema. And he just walks back out of the bank, and no one's the wiser, right? Until the teller goes, "We've just been robbed." And it's amazing the way that he does it, the way he gets away with it. And the way the script is structured, obviously it lives off Robert Redford's, "Hey mate, how you doing?" I'm just talking about Robert Redford's The Old Man and the Gun. Don't worry, no spoilers. Absolutely spoiler free. And there's like a lot of really funny stuff happening there. He basically is running away from just having robbed a bank, and he always listens in onto the police scanner, so he knows exactly what's going on. And so he knows where the police is and what they're doing and whether they're still searching for him. So he drives away in the car, and then he hears that they're looking for that particular car. So he ditches the car and gets another one, and he drives down the freeway or something, and then he sees Sissy Spacek in her truck that's just broken down, and he pulls over. He pulls over, gets out, and goes like, "Hi there, ma'am, can I help you? What seems to be the problem?" And he basically helps her try to fix the car, and he doesn't know anything about the car, so he gives her a lift. And I was like, this is actually brilliant, because you look busy. Like, you don't look like a bank robber who's trying to get as quickly away from the scene of the crime. You're stopping on the side, on the shoulder, to try and help someone with a broken down car. That is genius. And that is pretty much what the entire film is. The film is just genius in these small moments, in these little details of the characters, of the narrative, of the story. It just all flows so well, and it's so funny and hilarious, and yet it's all based on facts. This is all based on a true story. I mean, I assume they probably embellished it a bit, but the stuff that's going on in this film is just absolutely ridiculous, and it's true. And there's stuff happening. Thank you, good stuff. And there's stuff happening later on that I'm not gonna give away, but there's like sort of a montage of something happening. That's absolutely hilarious. It's stuff that's been talked about throughout the film, and then you get to see something, and it's just so much fun. You can tell that they wanted it to be like, you know, those good old school capers where criminals had honor and manners, and not everything was about so much violence and stuff. Like, I don't know, like an old school, well-mannered gentleman scoundrel, so to speak. It's really, excuse me, it's really weird. But it's just, the film oozes charm just as much as Robert Redford has always oozed charm. And that smile of his just makes everything better. And then add to that Sissy Spacek, who sort of like becomes a potential love interest. And then you have Casey Affleck as a detective who obviously wants to get this guy. And it just, you can tell where it's going, but then it throws quite a lot of curveballs that you don't expect. And no matter what happens, whether you think it's predictable or not, it's always fun and entertaining because of what the actors do with their characters, because of the situational awareness and the situational comic relief, so to speak. The dialogue is absolutely spot on, and it's just so, it's fun, it's entertaining, it's not violent, so you can even take children into this. Whether they would appreciate it as much as, I'm not sure. But it's all this old school charm and old school humor, and everything's just taking its time and not rushing about things. And I think there's even like maybe a life lesson or two to be learned in this. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful film that is well structured. There's not a lot of fat on it. I was thoroughly enjoying it from start to finish. And I loved the ending. It was like you walk out of this film, or well, I walked out of this film with a smile on my face, just like I did with Wild Rose. It's a very positive film, I think, and I had a lot of fun with it. I was a bit sad thinking that this might be Robert Redford's swan song, but if it is, he's going out with a bang because this film is absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend this one. Let's see, The Old Man and the Gun. You can also see this one on Saturday. It has the last screening at Mayfair at 6. So if you can get tickets for that, try and get it. It's so worth it. But I think it's getting a general release not too long from now. I think it might also be a January thing. But put that on your list. It is so absolutely worth checking this one out. I really highly recommend this one. What's that number? I think that was number 4, wasn't it? What's next? Oh, yeah. Assassination Nation. That is here. I've only seen this today. So this is where we are. So this is, what did I call it on Twitter? A fucked up girl power movie. That's kind of what it is. It takes a while to get going. And it's quite problematic. I think it doesn't really bring across a lot of the points it's trying to bring across very well. However, the last half hour, I was like, wow. As if you've drilled into my mind and you've taken some of my darkest and deepest thoughts and visualized them on screen. So it really resonated with me, that last half hour. Mm-hmm. And I think, oh, damn it, I thought I put not disturb on. Sorry about that. So what is Assassination about? Assassination opens with cinema. Hey, Cher, how you doing? I'm talking about Assassination Nation. I've just seen that today at London Film Festival. All spoiler free. I do not spoil a movie. So Assassination Nation opens with cinema's most audacious trigger warning. That is very true. I was like, what am I watching? As a montage of lurid images unfolds on screen, viewers are advised that the subsequent film contains, among other things, sexual content, toxic masculinity, homophobia, transphobia, guns, racism, the male gaze, sexism, torture, and fragile male egos. However, this seemingly endless list of misdemeanors is certainly no last-minute apology. It's a celebration. And now that everyone's primed for exactly what's in store, the director can truly let it rip. So we are at Salem High School, and the senior there, Lily, and her gal pals exist in a supposedly safe social media bubble. Documenting and sharing their aspirational lives with fastidious dedication. But there are some secrets that even those young exhibitionists wouldn't want to reveal. And when a targeted data hack exposes the private lives of the town's residents, mob mentality prevails and Salem quickly descends into a breeding ground of mayhem and murder, with Lily and her gang smack bang in the center. And it's saying, a worthy successor to Rebellious Spirit of subversive teen classics such as Heathers, Doom Generation, Spring Breakers. It is a phenomenal film. It doesn't always hit home, I think, the way it's trying to. But it definitely brings its point across. The resolution at the end, it wasn't a surprise because you can tell exactly who is responsible for everything. And it's not even about who's responsible for everything, because that's kind of like a little dud in there that like no one really cares about. It's about the repercussions for everyone else who lives in Salem. And obviously it's kind of hilarious that it's in a town called Salem, that all this mayhem is going to start, because it's going to get gutsy and gory, and people are going to get killed and hanged and shot and knifed, and like it's a very, very violent film, especially in the half hour. And I have to admit, it's the half hour that really got my attention. As soon as like this mob mentality that the article is talking about is very prevalent and is one of the, I don't want to say one of the biggest problems of the film, because it's not a problem of the film. This is obviously something the film is trying to put a message out about. And it's one of the things that I'm worried about, like, almost the most. What a mob can do. And I mean, we see this in the world every single day. We even see it in governments now, because of certain individuals who are in power at the moment. This mob mentality is really, really scary. And if they're not being put in check by the authorities, if the authorities are part of the mob mentality, that is when it gets really fucking scary. And the film kind of goes into that as well. And it's more about how people deal with this, and how people deal with what is happening to them, what is happening to their loved ones, to their friends, and what their response to that is. That I thought was the most interesting bit about it. Obviously, the setup is quite interesting. There are certain characters that say it's like, well, I hate the internet. Before the internet, none of this shit would have happened. And of course, you know, that's true. But just like everything, it's got a good and a bad side to it. But I really loved the last half hour that I can't really talk about because it's a huge ass spoiler. But there are things that happen that are really horrendous. And then there are things that are atrocious, which I think is worse than horrendous. But characters rise to the occasion, for lack of a better term, and decide how they're going to go about having this happen to you, or having this happen to someone they know, or to a family member or a friend. And I found that very powerful, and I always felt like when some injustice happens or something happens to someone, it's like, I wish I could do that, or I think that we should all do this, because we as women, like I'm saying, this is more like a girl power film. It's very fucked up, but it's a girl power film. And I sometimes think that we as women, we sometimes forget that just complaining about things is not going to change anything. Just talking about things is not going to change anything. You actually have to take action. And sometimes you unfortunately have to take action that your opponent will understand. And sometimes that action could be violence, because all you're getting from them is violence. So the film, it could have had a broader appeal, a broader spectrum of how it goes about supposedly answering certain questions. It goes one particular route, and I have to admit that I have a certain affinity to this, because these are definitely some of my deepest and darkest thoughts that have, like I said, that have been visualized by this film. It's like, who hasn't ever thought about just killing the people that have done them wrong, you know? And like, if you're honest with yourself, you will have thought about this at least once in your life. If you're a woman, and maybe even if you're a man. But there will have been something in your life where you would have gone like, I wish I could kill this motherfucker. And whatever the reasons are why you're not doing it, fair enough. But it's like, you know, when you watch The Purge, it's like, oh, if there was actually a purge, would I actually kill someone or not? Those kinds of things. So the film poses those kinds of questions, while also giving a tiny bit of an answer, or taking a tiny bit of a stance, which I thought was interesting, but is probably quite controversial. Probably more controversial here in Europe than it is in the States, because in Europe we have more of a problem with violence, whereas in the States they have more of a problem with sex, especially when it comes to women and sex. And the film kind of delves into that as well. Because as you can see, the 4 protagonists are all young females in high school. So obviously this is about them, and this emphasizes their experience and what's happening to them. So the film definitely has a certain point of view, and it might be a bit skewed and stuff like that. But given the current climate, I think the film works really well and fits in really well. And that is true with quite a lot of films that I've seen recently that are more about not necessarily female empowerment, but female experience, living in this patriarchal world. And Assassination Nation definitely falls into that. It's more, like I said, there's a lot of trigger warnings happening in this. There's a lot of shit that happens in this film. And it's probably not easy to digest. There was a woman reviewer sitting next to me, and she was like watching like this and like this. And I was like, the stuff that I'm seeing isn't even that horrendously ridiculous, or over the top, considering some of the other stuff that I've seen. We're numbing down to violence as well. It's really bad. But this film is, I think, good, especially for young women to watch, because of what's happening in there, the consequences of some of the actions, and the consequences of some of the, the world we live in, especially in regards to the internet and social media, and that there's hardly any privacy left, etc., etc. And I thought from that point of view, it's quite interesting in regards to racism and homophobia and transphobia and all of that stuff. But it doesn't delve very deep. It could have gone a lot deeper, but it's skimming the surface really well. And I love the way that it kind of resolves everything. The final resolution was not a surprise. Like, you halfway through the film, you know exactly what's going on and who will be responsible for everything. Men don't come off very well. Hey there, CD. In this film, men don't really shine. Women don't necessarily shine either, but it's definitely more a women-centric film, a women empowerment film. And that's, I mean, I am a woman. Of course, that resonated with me. So from that point of view, I really liked it. We have 4 female leads. Like I said, a favorite I thought was great. We had 3 female leads. Here we have 4, even though one of them is kind of like the lead. And the violence aspect of the film might keep a bunch of people away, which I think would be a shame. I think women need to watch this film because it's good. It's not perfect. It's got its flaws, and there are a lot of issues with it. But overall, I think it's going in the right direction, and it's trying to make a stand. And it's important that we see these kinds of things. So if you haven't had a chance to see this, there's another screening on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. and on Sunday at 8:30 p.m. That's actually at the Prince Charles Cinema. I would go there. It's a really, really good cinema. Oh, and tomorrow as well, sorry. Yeah, at 9:30. So Friday, Saturday, and I'm reading the wrong thing. Don't mind me. What the heck? No, it's right. Oh my god. Lack of sleep. I'm going to tell you a story about my lack of sleep later. Yes, Assassination Nation. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. One screening each. So try and check that one out. It's really, really good. Like I said, also very, very violent and unsettling. These trigger warnings are there, kind of like, they're proud to have them, but they're also there for a reason. So make sure that you do not have an issue with that. So it was sexual content, toxic masculinity, homophobia, transphobia, guns, racism, male gaze, sexism, torture, and fragile male egos. So some of them are obviously a bit tongue-in-cheek, but there's a lot of shit happening in this film. So if you can stomach it, especially if you're a woman, try and see it. I think you'd enjoy it. Especially the last half hour. I really thought it was good. What's the next one? Oh, that's Buster, isn't it? That is number 6, wasn't it? Yes, it was. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. So that's the new Coen Brothers film. And this was one of the films where I literally knew nothing other than it's a Western and it's made by the Coen Brothers. That's all I knew. And I went to watch it. And I was like, hey, Asimov. Oh, I like your name. I love Isaac Asimov. How you doing? I'm just talking about The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is a new film by the Coen Brothers. So, it's not your standard film. Like, first of all, I'm not a fan of Westerns, but it's like, oh, the Coen Brothers are making a Western? Yeah, I'll watch that. This is also something that will come out on Netflix. Oh, bollocks. It said somewhere. I think it was first week of November, something like that. So if you've missed that in the cinema, don't worry about it, because it will come out on Netflix. However, the cinematography of the film is so phenomenal that I think if you get a chance to see it on the big screen, you should. It looks absolutely amazing. And the sound design is really good as well. I highly recommend watching this on the big screen. So, this is not your standard film, which I didn't know about. This is actually like an omnibus, like an anthology. It's 6 stories? Anthology of half dozen Western tales. Yeah. So it's 6 individual stories that are not connected, because throughout the entire film I was like, it's going to be like a Tarantino thing. It's going to be connected, right? There's going to be something. It's like, they're not connected. It's literally just an anthology of 6 Western stories with individual cast, individual setting. Everything's very different. Even the genres, even though everything falls under the Western New Frontier kind of a umbrella, so to speak, the genres itself also changed quite a lot. Like the first one, which is actually The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, was my absolute favorite. And that is more of like, can you call it slapstick comedy? I think so. It's really funny and tongue-in-cheek and over the top. It reminded me of like Saturday morning cartoons, like back in the day, where like someone walks into a saloon and dusts themselves off and keeps on walking, and the dust still hangs there in the air in the figure of the person that just dusted them. You know, stuff like that is absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, Buster Scruggs was really great. What's the guy's name? Blah, 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 blah. Tim Blake Nelson plays him, and he was phenomenal. And he obviously loves working with the Coens because he's worked with the Coens a lot. I think we got to interview him on the red carpet. He was phenomenal. He was just having so much fun with this. But one of the things that really threw me is that it is, oh god, my hair is really annoying, that that it is an anthology of 6 individual stories, because I didn't know that. And obviously Buster Scruggs starts going on, and he's a really interesting character, and it's really funny and fun, and I was like, I didn't know it was supposed to be a comedy. And then something happens and you're like, the story's over now. What the fuck? And then something else happens. And the way that they've done it is they kind of like show you a book, and they show you like someone flips the page, and there's like an image there with a bit of text, and the title, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. And then it goes into the story. And then you see the book again. Someone turns the page. And then there's another image with another headline of... I can't even remember what the other stories were called. But they have different headlines, like different titles. So only the first one's called The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. And they've decided to call the entire movie that. But it's only one of 6 stories. And... like I said, they go into different genres and stuff. One is kind of like almost like a gothic thing, and yeah, some are very disturbing. But overall, I thought it was really, first of all, it's really well done. The cinematography looks great. The actors are fantastic. Who else is in this? So we had Tim Blake Nelson as Buster Scruggs. Liam Neeson is in it. Tom Waits as Kazan. Oh yeah, she was lovely. We got to interview her as well. She plays the only. No, one of 2 women in the 6 segments. And Bill Heck is in it, and a bunch of other people. And it's just really fantastic. James Franco's in it as well. So there's one about like some wannabe bank robber who's trying to rob a bank in the middle of nowhere. It's literally just a bank. Not a town, just a bank in the middle of nowhere. And you're like, what the fuck is this bank doing there in the middle of nowhere? It's like, doesn't matter, it's a stylistic choice, whatever. So I thought that was hilarious. And then something about like a wagon train, and some Indians, and it's just, yeah, it's just proverbial Western stuff. And it's absolutely brilliant. The performances are great. The locations, like some of those locations are fucking fantastic. So I don't really want to give anything away, because there's just, all these individual stories are so much fun, and they're so different, and yet fall under the same Western New Frontier umbrella, that I kind of want the Coens to do this again with, like, let's say a different genre, like maybe fantasy or science fiction or rom-coms or whatever. I think it works really well, because you get 6 individual stories for like the ticket of the price of one film. So in case you don't like one of the stories, there might be like 4 or 5 others that you really like. And I think there was one story I didn't particularly like, which was the one with Liam Neeson. Because it's very disturbing. You know exactly where it's going to go. But I found it so unsettling and disturbing that I was like, no, I want Buster Scruggs back, because he was fun. So overall, production value great. Netflix is doing amazing stuff. They've had a lot of stuff screened here at the London Film Festival. I got to see... Oh yeah, I'm going to be talking about this later. I watched a movie, and in one of the cinemas where they show press screenings, you will, by default, watch the film on the big IMAX screen. And the IMAX screen, obviously, is ginormous, right? And the films, all the press screening films that I've seen at the IMAX screen are not IMAX movies. And I was like, that's a bit weird. So imagine seeing the Netflix logo that I'm usually, like, have it like this on my tiny little telly. And then you're sitting in an IMAX cinema, and all of a sudden the Netflix logo appears on this ginormous screen. And you're just like, holy fucking shit. Like, my TV really feels inadequate now. It was just a very weird and bizarre occurrence. But I think it's going to happen more often, because Netflix is putting out a lot of really, really good stuff. Not everything is awesome, but they're decent, at least, the things that they put out. And that they're putting them into cinemas, I think is really fantastic. So, did I enjoy The Ballad of Buster Scruggs? Heck yeah! Really did. Like I said, 6 stories, and I think 4 of them I really liked. The Neeson one not as much, just because I knew exactly where it was going. Hey there, Barrett, how you doing? I'm just talking about The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. And his name's not Buster, it's Buster. Spoiler free. So yeah, the Liam Neeson one I didn't like as much. But that is just because I thought it was a bit predictable. There was one guy in that story that I thought was phenomenal. And I didn't get to interview him at the red carpet, so I was quite bummed. Because I was like, I really want to talk to him. And I was like, that's the one person you can't talk to. And I was like, damn you! So Ballad of Buster Scruggs, definitely thumbs up from me. Especially the very first one, which actually is the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Really, really good. So if you're not sure if you want to see it because it's a Western, you don't really care about Westerns, because I really don't care about Westerns, just wait till it's out on Netflix. I think it's the first week of November, or maybe it's the 9th, something like that. It's definitely the first half of November that it comes out. So check that one out. It's really, really good. But that one also has screenings on Friday, on Saturday. No, sorry, that's the other Saturday. So just on Sunday at the BFI, actually. So if you get a chance, it's at 8:40 p.m. on Sunday at the BFI. So that was number 6. This is number 7. Oh yeah, Life Itself. That is a film that has famously been reviewed horribly in North America. I think it was it a TIFF? I think it was a TIFF, wasn't it? I can't remember. Doesn't say here. Anyway, it reviewed abysmally. Critics were pretty much killing this film. So I wasn't really sure whether I wanted to see it. Hey there, Abe, how you doing? I'm just talking about Life Itself, all spoiler free. I know I keep repeating that. If you've been watching for a while, I say that all the time, but I just want to say to people that have just tuned in, just so you know that I'm not going to be spoiling anything for you. And thank you for all the hearts. So Life Itself, heart-rending complexities of life are embraced in a multi-layered love story from This Is Us creator Dan Fogelman. So if you don't know what This Is Us is, it's a TV show in the States. I think it's on NBC. And it's a tearjerker. It's heartbreaking, but also beautiful. And that's kind of what Life Itself is as well. And I got to talk to Dan Fogelman, and he's brilliant. He's lovely, and he understands human emotion really well, I think. Because his TV show makes me laugh and cry and just feel all the feels, and Life Itself did exactly the same. So there's stuff happening in Life Itself that's really, really heavy and really heartbreaky and horrendous and traumatic, but also really beautiful. And when the film was over, I heard so much sniffling in the cinema, it was ridiculous. So you might want to bring a box of tissues or 2 or 3, or you want to snot into your jumper or whatever it is. There were at least 3 or 4 times where I just, uncontrollable waterfalls were just gushing down my face and snot out of my nose, and I was just like, I'm a mess, that kind of a film. And it's also structured in a way that I think it's 4 segments, if I remember this correctly. Let's see. What else does it say? Fans of smash hit US TV series This Is Us will already know creator Dan Fogelman has an innate knack for producing emotional multi-character drama on an epic scale. With Life Itself, Fogelman effortlessly renders his talent in richly cinematic terms, gathering an all-star ensemble cast for his ambitious meditation on the human condition and fundamental truths that connect us all. We have Oscar Isaac and Olivia Wilde play a New York couple driven apart by tragedy. Charting their love affair from their college days through to married life and the birth of their first child, we experience their transcendental highs and crushing lows. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a couple in the lush Spanish countryside endeavored to make their relationship work in the face of mounting external influences. Through one single incident, the lives of these seemingly disparate people prove inextricably linked, impacting each of them in unforeseen ways. So all 4 segments of the film are brought together kind of like in a Tarantino way, like everything is connected. And even without the thing telling you, you can immediately tell after having seen the first segment that is what is the case, because Fogelman makes it really easy to understand the structure of the film, and he works a lot with foreshadowing, which I'm personally a fan of if it's done right. And one of the things that might not be as fantastic in this film is that the foreshadowing is done in a really simple way, as in almost trying to spoon feed certain things to the viewer, almost insinuating the viewers are stupid and I have to spell shit out for them. But that didn't necessarily negate the emotional impact. Definitely didn't negate the emotional impact. Like, there was so much emotional impact. Like, I was a fucking mess. But it's also like the enjoyment of the film, because obviously there's a lot of drama and tragedy happening, as you can tell just from what I read. But there's also like really profound, life-affirming and hopeful stuff and beautiful stuff, because in every tragedy there's a glimmer of hope. And that is captured in this film really, really well. And while the film starts out kind of like Buster, starts out in a, what am I watching? Is this a comedy? I thought this was like a heartbreaking, gut-wrenching drama. And then you have Samuel L. Jackson doing a voiceover, and he's being very tongue-in-cheek, and everything is like being really hilarious and comedic. And you're like, what the heck is going on? But that is explained really quickly, really well, in a way that I really appreciated and enjoyed. Because I was like, where's he going with this? And that's when the film starts kicking into gear already. It just basically went like, you thought it was going this way. I'm actually going there, and this is what I'm trying to do, and here's where I want you to go, and this is what I want you to feel. So it's very manipulative. But if it's done right, I don't mind it as much. I don't mind being manipulated in a movie, because I feel that a lot of movies do that, especially with the music, because obviously certain music will elicit certain emotions from you. Without music, without sound, there's not as much emotional connection. And the film does this really well and really drives it home. Like, some of the stuff where I was like sobbing uncontrollably, it wouldn't have been as powerful without the music. And the film knows that, and Fogelman knows that, and like we all know that. And I know that some film critics are having a problem with it, and it was like, they don't need to manipulate me, and they don't need to tell me how I have to feel here and how I have to feel there. It's like, dude, if you don't want to feel it, just don't fucking feel it. You know, if it doesn't naturally come for you, then just, you know, fuck it. You know, this is supposed to be mega sad, and I'm crying my eyes out and snotting everywhere. If you don't find it sad, you don't have to fucking cry. Don't feel like you have to do anything. But yeah, it's definitely an emotional roller coaster that worked for me. I love emotional stuff. I need emotional stuff. I need to be emotionally engaged with at least one of the lead characters, because if I'm not, then the movie doesn't work for me. And I've seen a lot of films at the London Film Festival that were technically really good and really solid, and the performances were good, but for whatever reason I was not emotionally involved. And that means that I'm bored. Because if I'm not emotionally involved, and if I don't give a shit about your lead, why do you think I should be watching this film? I don't want a history lesson. Like, I can read a fucking book for that, and I'm probably going to be more involved just reading the bloody book than watching someone who might be an arrogant asshole who has no redeeming qualities, and you want me to feel for them. It's like, it's not going to happen. So the film, I think, actually does this really well, because I felt for a lot of the characters. You have Olivia Wilde and Oscar Isaac over here. Mandy Patinkin is in there. We have Olivia Cook. She was on the red carpet. She was very, very lovely. We also have Laia Costa and Annette Bening and Antonio Banderas in it. So it's quite an all-star cast. Hi, David. How you doing? I'm just talking about life itself. All spoiler-free. Don't you worry. So I really love that. And obviously, because there is this easily to spot interconnectedness between all of these segments, that you're piecing it together in your head and you have certain theories, and then it's not very hard to figure out what's going to happen and what the final resolution is going to be and stuff. But because I have an emotional involvement and the characters take me on an emotional journey, especially in the first segment, which has, I think, the most powerful impact on me as a viewer, because you don't know exactly what the movie's trying to do and where it's trying to take you. Because of that, it has the most powerful impact, and it really killed me, the stuff that happened there. And I thought it was so beautiful and fantastic, and the way that it was structured, I was like, I saw it coming, and yet it still surprised me. And because you kind of know where he's trying to go with that, every subsequent segment you see will become more and more predictable, so that the later ones are not as much fun to watch as the first one is. And I think it's also because we already know that we're going into tragic territory, whereas the first segment starts, like I said, with Samuel L. Jackson being a really cheeky narrator and stuff. So there's more fun in that. It's kind of like Buster Scruggs, where Buster Scruggs is hilarious and funny. It's the comedy side of the film, and then we delve into other territories, which is probably why none of the other segments ever went back to what the very first one did. And life itself kind of falls into the same trap, which is a bit unfortunate, but because you're emotionally involved already, it still works. It still worked for me. Maybe it's because I'm an actor and I'm just such an emotional, vulnerable ball of emotions. I don't know. I can't think of anything else. Maybe it works because of that. I don't know. But it really worked for me. And I was involved in that, and even though I was like, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and certain bits at the end, especially in the second half, take a long time to get going, so you could cut it down a bit. But it was shot beautifully, and the performances were great, and I was just with it, and I loved the score, and I loved the scenery, and yeah, it was just beautiful. I really, really enjoyed this film. It's very melodramatic. If you have a problem with melodrama, you're not gonna like life itself, because that is pretty much what the entire movie is. It's tragic, melodramatic, extreme, over the top. Some of the coincidences that happen in there, you're like, what the fuck is up with that? But because I don't know, Fogelman somehow really knows how the frequency for my heartstrings, and he plays them perfectly. Which is why I like This Is Us. If you like This Is Us, I think you will like life itself, because it's pretty much This Is Us on the big screen. And it works just as well. And considering how successful the TV show is, I'm pretty sure the movie will be successful as well. The critics just don't like it, because they're like, you could have made something more sophisticated and pretentious out of it, and probably he could have. But he's like, he's not interested in that. He's interested in the human complexities and human emotions, and I love that, because I'm drawn to that. I'm always drawn more to the emotionality of a story and the performances by actors than I am in the actual plot, the narrative, and blah blah blah. Which is why life itself worked for me and it didn't work for other people. I don't have problem with that kind of melodrama. I've watched a bunch of films in the last few years that was so over-the-top melodramatic that I was like, is it supposed to be funny? Because if it is, someone better tell me it's supposed to be funny, because it's really cringy. I didn't find this film cringy, but that is obviously my subjective point of view, my personal taste. I loved it. It tugged at all my heartstrings and then some. And I was crying and I was nodding, and I think it's beautiful, and I thought the performances were great, and it made me laugh and it made me smile, and I cried, and then at the end, even though I was a blubbering mess, I still smiled because it was beautiful, life affirming and hopeful and positive. And I think that is sometimes all I want in a movie, that I had an emotional experience and I walk out with a smile on my face. And I consider that a successful film, which is why I consider life itself a successful film. So go and see that one. Did I say? Okay, all of the screenings have happened. The last one is literally happening right now. So I think it comes out in January, if I'm not mistaken. So stay tuned for that. I mean, if it comes out, I will be talking about it again on ILoveCinema anyway. So I will warn you, going like, oh, do you remember this? Yeah, I told you to watch it. What else do we have? Rafiki. This is another LGBT film. Oh yeah, by the way, I think I mentioned that, but The Favorite is an LGBT film because all three leading ladies are gay, which is also something I didn't see coming. That was fantastic. Let's have a look. Rafiki. That is a film from Africa. Is it from Kenya? I can't remember. I think it's Kenya. We have romantic sparks fly between the daughters of two opposing politicians in Manuro Kahiyu's neon bright story of forbidden love in Kenya. Yes, it's Kenya. And it's those two girls. And I didn't really know anything about this film other than it's from Africa and it's an LGBT story. And I was like, if I can watch it, I want to watch it. And so I did. And I really liked it. It's very stereotypical. Like it's basically taking the Romeo and Juliet story. And instead of them being opposing clans or families, these are opposing politicians who are running campaigns and vying for the same, what is it? For the same position. What is it? Do they want to be mayor? I think they want to be mayor of the town they live in. And then, so the two girls don't like each other at first because it's like, well, you're my dad's rival's daughter. And then the other one, well, you're my dad's rival's daughter. And then obviously, you know, sparks fly where sparks fly, and then stuff just happens. And people are not very happy with that. Not just because they're from sort of opposing political families, but also because they're gay. You know, maybe it would have been slightly different if it was a girl and a boy. But because it's two women, obviously that is something that is still frowned upon in large parts of the world, especially in Africa and the Arab world. So there's some, like, there might be some trigger warnings needed potentially, because obviously there's going to be some gay bashing happening there. There's also a gay man depicted in this film very early on as a supporting character or featured extra or something like that. And he is constantly made fun of, and you also see that he was probably gay bashed because all of a sudden he walks around, I think, with a limp, and he has like at least one black eye. So and one of the other characters is always making fun of him and kind of like verbally attacking him and threatening him. So it's, even though it is an LGBT film, it's also very but it's showing anti-gay behavior, which is obviously something that some people have problems with. That's, for some people, might be triggery. So just be aware of that you don't see the man being attacked other than verbally, but you see the women, both of these girls, being attacked later on in the film. I know that might be considered a spoiler, but I think it's more important that this is a trigger warning because you see that happening. It's not very ferocious or very violent. It was done in a quite tame way. I've definitely seen these things happen on film differently, looking a lot more brutal and horrendous, but it's still not a nice sight to behold. So just be aware of that there is definitely violence happening in this film against gay people and women, gay women. But overall, I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was really fun, other than the gay bashing. And, excuse me, and it was quite, it has quite a positive outlook as well. Like, I'm not going to give away the ending, because there's a lot of shit happening there and stuff. But overall, I thought, when you watch gay films, that, like, a lot of the time they can be really, really negative in their portrayal, of the consequences of certain actions, of the consequences of where you live and stuff. So it can be absolutely horrendous with the stuff that you potentially see the characters go through. And like I said, that might be very triggery for a lot of people. And some of that is definitely happening here as well. But overall, I left the cinema feeling a lot more positive about the film. Like, I mentioned that it's kind of akin to the Romeo and Juliet thing, but more in they were from opposing families and opposing clans, not as in that's how the movie ends. So I'm not making any commentary in regards to how the movie ends. I just wanted to say that. So it's really cute. The acting is actually quite decent. I'm not sure whether everyone in this actually is like a professional actor or anything. Let's see, what else does it say? Ba, 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 ba. So we have street smart tomboy Kenna? Yeah. Kenna and rainbow-haired free-spirit Ziki both dream of a life beyond the stifling confines of their conservative Nairobi neighborhood. From the moment the two young women meet, the connection is clear, and soon their budding friendship blossoms into something more serious. Torn between a romantic desire to follow their hearts and a pragmatic need to follow their heads, the star-crossed lovers find themselves forced to make an impossible choice between happiness and safety. And this is obviously a very timely film and a very necessary film, because we obviously still have problems with gay rights and gay people being killed, especially in Africa. And there being anything between gay bashed and being killed is happening as well. So this kind of depiction is very positive, is really important. And I hope that more people are watching that. Let's see what else. Before premiere at Cannes, a national ban was enforced for its supposed intent to promote lesbianism in Kenya, which is contrary to the law. And this is obviously exactly why this film was made. And I think it was part of the BFI Flair, who are putting on a lot of LGBT projects, which is quite good. It's a really well-structured film. You obviously know exactly what's going to happen. Some of the things are a bit stereotypical and by the numbers. But considering that you don't get to see a lot of LGBT films out of Africa, I think this one is definitely worth watching. Unfortunately, it's just run its course, actually. All the screenings are in the past. Unfortunately, the last screening was last Sunday. But it's a really, really great film. If you get to see it somewhere, definitely try and check it out if you're into LGBT stories. It's quite funny in places. I think the acting is quite good. Not necessarily something to write home about, but it's decent. The characters, you've seen them before, but because, like I said, it's part of this is Kenyan culture, African culture, which is something that I don't think gets depicted very often, especially not in a gay context. And yes, it's very by the numbers, and you know exactly what's going to happen next. But it's really adorable, and it's really cute, and the two leads are really, really cute as well. And it's just, I would say, a really fluffy story if it wasn't for the gay bashing that happens as well. But overall, very positive. I've seen a lot more negative stuff, especially out of those particular countries or that particular continent. It's usually more depressing stuff that you get to see, whereas this one is more uplifting and reaffirming and positive. So I definitely recommend this one. Really, really enjoyed it. It was really cute, and I was definitely smiling a lot while I was watching it, and I was quite happy when I left the cinema. What do we have? So this is Tehran. Let's see, where is that one? Yeah. Tehran, City of Love. That is, obviously, Tehran, a city in Iran. It's the capital, I think, of Iran. And where we just had the kind of like romantic, cutesy love story in Kenya. And here we have not really a cutesy, however, a really funny sort of love story involving three individuals in the city of Tehran. And two of them being men, one of them being a gay man, and one of them being a lady. And especially the lady, she's absolutely hilarious. Some of the stuff that she does really elicited laugh out loud moments from the audience. I was very, very surprised by that. And what you see here with the teddy bear, that is one of the things that happens in the film that is absolutely adorable and funny and ridiculous. And she just sells it really well. Some of the stuff that she has to do, I don't think everyone could pull off, because it is so extreme and over the top, where you're like, why are you doing this? It's like sometimes I find certain characters really hard to relate to. And I definitely had the problem with the woman here. I was like, why is she doing the things that she's doing? But it's pretty much because everyone is lonely. Everyone is looking for love. Everyone thinks that they cannot find love for whatever reason, because something's wrong with them. And I think this is something that we probably all can relate to, which is why the movie just works on a universal level, and is absolutely fantastic. So let's see, how do they describe it? Pitch perfect deadpan humor helps paint a picture of Tehran as you've never seen it before, heralding an exciting new voice in contemporary Iranian cinema. And that's absolutely true. This humor in here is absolutely brilliant. Mina, so the lady's name is Mina, is a receptionist at an upmarket beauty clinic. Unhappy about her weight, but addicted to ice cream, she catfishes men she encounters at work. Hassam, a retired bodybuilder, who's the gay boy, who trains affluent older men, is cast in a film with Louis Garrel, someone neither he nor anyone around him has ever heard of, even if the producer assures him that the French actor is very famous. He's like the most famous French actor ever. They say that in the film. Meanwhile, Vahid, a singer at religious ceremonies and an expert mourner, is convinced by his friends to try singing at weddings after his girlfriend breaks up with him. Playing on the trope of unrequited love, a consistent subject of traditional Persian storytelling, this playfully observed triptych of individuals looking for romance reflects on the fleeting nature of happiness. That sums it up really well. So it's all about unrequited love. They're all lonely, they're all looking for love, and whether they find it eventually or not, that is being depicted in Tehran, a city of love. And it's just a beautiful depiction of Tehran itself. I'm not very familiar with Iran, I'm not very familiar with Tehran, but usually the stuff that you see, not coming out of Iran, but the depiction of Iran, the depiction of the Arab world, is usually in a very negative light. And Tehran, City of Love, turns that on its head and goes like, we're not making that kind of a movie. We're making a movie about love and unrequited love and about human beings that are trying to connect with others. And it's absolutely beautiful. And you can relate to them. It's like, you don't need to be a gay man to relate to the gay man. You don't need to be a lady or a fat lady to relate to the lady. You know, it's like, these are understandable and relatable people that have issues and faults and problems that we can all relate to. I think even if you're in a loving and doting relationship, you will have had a point in your life where that wasn't the case, where you were like, love is rubbish, love never happens for me, love is always unrequited, everyone's a rubbish person, rah, 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 rah. This is definitely something everyone can relate to. The obstacles we have to overcome, the things about ourselves that we're not happy with and that we're trying to make better, and yet these are inherently things that's just who we are, and certain things you just can't change about yourself, and maybe it's okay to be the way that you are. And it's just a really beautiful tale of identity and happiness and love and unrequited love and what it means to be you. And for that alone, I really enjoyed Tehran, City of Love. It's a bit slow, but overall, I wouldn't call it a comedy either. It's not a drama. Maybe we should call it a dramedy. I'm not sure. I don't really like these things put together as much, but there are a lot of very funny bits, a lot of very over-the-top funny bits, and they work. Some of them didn't work as much for me. I chuckled or I smiled. Other people in the cinema were laughing, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't call it a comedy though, but I also, like I said, I wouldn't call it a drama. So it's like one of those things, like in between. It doesn't really, like it's, like I'm saying, it's about identities. Like it doesn't really know where it fits, just like the characters. But it works. It's very entertaining. And I think the running time's not even that long. It's like 100 minutes. So let's see. It has another screening tomorrow at 12:15 at the View West End. So try and check that one out. I definitely think it's worth it. And that's not last but not least. Frontrunner, really? Before Outlaw King? Okay, fine. Okay, let's talk about The Frontrunner, which is a movie starring Hugh Jackman and Vera Farmiga and J.K. Simmons. It's about a politician in the 80s, isn't it? Let's see what it says here. It's also filmed by Jason Reitman, by the way, director Jason Reitman, who did Juno and some other bits. Tully, I think, came out earlier this year. He did that one as well. I'm a huge fan of that particular film. So we have Democratic candidate Gary Hart, who is played by Hugh Jackman, who's phenomenal in this. He was the man to beat in the 1988 American presidential campaign. So we're at the end of the 80s, right? Handsome, whip-smart, principled, and with really great hair, which apparently, according to the film, is really important. He led George W. Bush in the polls by double digits. America loved him, yet all that changed in a week. Breaking unwritten rules on the personal discretions allowed politicians, the Miami Herald staked out Hart's Washington apartment to expose his long-rumored extramarital affairs, this one with beautiful blonde Donna Rice. And I remember the name Donna Rice, even though I was really young when that happened. Following suit, other media camped outside his house, pursuing the candidate's wife and daughter, played by Vera Farmiga and Caitlin Dever. Based on Matt Bai's expose, All the Truth is Out, the week politics went tabloid, Reitman's film centers on this extraordinary week. But this satisfyingly multi-layered script also probes Hart's own attitudes, the sense of male entitlement that made him blithely unable to recognize how his behavior would hurt the women involved. And we also have J.K. Simmons shining as Hart's campaign manager in an excellent ensemble. Standouts also include Farmiga, Dever, and Molly Ephraim as one of the few women on Hart's campaign team. This is a cracking, top-class political drama. Now, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't call it a cracking, top-class political drama. It's a decent political drama, but it's more about the role of the media and how the role of the media in political campaigns changed at this particular instance and changed forever because of this particular happening. More about that than it is about the actual presidential campaign and the scandal and the events that came from that. Considering who is currently in office in America and what a scandalous prick that is, it's rather timely that we have a film that brings to the forefront when the role of the media changed in regards to presidential candidates, to presidential campaigns, to personal discretions and their private lives. I mean, we all know and remember how Hillary Clinton was attacked for things that weren't necessarily attack-worthy, whereas Donald Trump got away scot-free with things that are criminal. Not just indecent, but criminal. So it's just interesting the role that the media plays and how everything is like, not a PR disaster, but like PR and marketing campaign. It's all about what the public thinks of you. And obviously the media plays a huge part in that. And just because of that, I think this film is rather important and poignant and timely and well placed coming out, well, during this current administration's term. As a political campaign and as a political campaign film, I didn't find it very effective nor interesting because obviously we all know he didn't win. So you already know the end. But the interesting thing is usually how you come to that end, like what the journey you've taken, what way you've taken, how do you actually end up where I know you're going to end up. And unfortunately, the film doesn't make that very interesting. Like, we have shining examples in Hugh Jackman playing, what's his name, Gary Hart, and Vera Farmiga plays his wife, and she's great, even though she's horribly underused, but that might just be because of what that is. Whereas she was kind of the first woman that had to smile through gritted teeth as everyone was saying and knowing that her husband was a fucking adulterer. And he didn't think it was his fault that everything that happened fucking happened. Because he's an entitled white prick. So obviously there's a lot wrong there, which is why I couldn't really feel a lot of empathy for Hugh Jackman's character. I thought he was a pig. And everything that happened to him and his family was entirely his fault. Because he couldn't keep his dick in his pants. And so I thought it was a lot more interesting to see Vera Farmiga as the wife, and also J.K. Simmons, who was the campaign manager, who was trying to sort that fucking disaster out. That's what was interesting, not actually Hugh Jackman's Gary Hart. Because I literally could not give less of a shit about him. Which is interesting because I'm a huge fan of Hugh Jackman. So I was like, I like what you're doing, like playing him, but you're playing an absolute asshole. And I kind of want him to be found out. And he got found out. And this is obviously how the political press has changed into a tabloid press. Because, you know, you sell papers and it's all about headlines, clickbait, as we call it now. So in that regard, do I think this is one of Reitman's better films? No. It's a decent film. And I think Reitman is doing a decent job, just like everyone is you know, showing solid performances. And obviously J.K. Simmons is bloody genius, as is Farmiga and Jackman, who don't necessarily get to do very much. But overall, it's a film that is not necessary to have seen, I think. Because the takeaway for me was, this is the week where media coverage of politicians changed. That's the main takeaway I had. That the entire campaign in the 80s was very misogynistic, even though obviously we're coming into really hotly misogynistic territory again now in 2018, thanks to some current world leaders. So it's something that rubs me the wrong way, because there's enough misogyny out there in the world. I don't need to see it in the cinema unless someone shows me that the character is overcoming it, or that there's some kind of character progression, or some kind of understanding, or whatever it is, that I feel that if someone watches the film, they will understand that misogyny is wrong and that you need to overcome this shit. I didn't have that feeling in The Frontrunner. It was just a historical depiction of what happened in 1988. So overall, I was like, I don't need to have seen this film, and neither should you. I wouldn't go out of my way to see it in the cinema. The cinematography is not that phenomenal. One of the things I will say, however, is that this was the first press screening that I've seen on the IMAX screen. And obviously it's not an IMAX movie. And they kind of pushed into the frame. It's almost like back in the day when they used to do pan and scan for video releases. It's like, oh god, the shutter. So you lost some parts of the image because they were kind of like zooming in. But I have to admit that while that obviously didn't make the film any greater, but I used to have an aversion, excuse me, against the IMAX screen. I would only go, because you have to pay extra for it and it's fucking expensive and I just don't have any money. And I would always like, well, maybe watch something in IMAX if it's like VFX fest or science fiction, spacey stuff, whatever. And spacey, I mean space, not Kevin Spacey. But now that I've seen a drama on an IMAX screen, I have to admit that that works really, really well. Because I was literally like right in their faces. You can see everything. They're so big, they can't hide anything from you. And I'm someone who sits quite far at the front in a normal screen anyway, because I like the screen to be as big as possible without me having to watch tennis, you know. And I still thought, it's like, wow, the IMAX screen really, it does make it even more intimate. Like I'm right there in their irises. So for that, I thought it was great. For The Frontrunner itself as a film, not necessary. Absolutely not. So, here we go with Outlaw King. This is a movie that has... no, it hasn't come out on Netflix yet, but it will come out on Netflix. I think that's also in... A lot of shit is coming out in November. I think it comes out in November. You can see it tomorrow at 8:40 at the PCC, the Prince Charles Cinema here in London. If you want to see it on the big screen. And I think you should. Because I've seen this yesterday, I think. Also on the IMAX screen. It looks great. It really looks great. It's very epic. It's showing beautiful cinematography of vast Scottish landscapes. It's beautiful and lovely. And I will probably watch it again when it's out on Netflix. Maybe just have it on in the background. I'm not sure. But there's just no way it's going to be as impressive as it was on the big screen. So if you get a chance, try and get tickets for tomorrow, 8:40 at the PCC. So what is Outlaw King about? We have, so it's Scotland, 1304. English King Edward has triumphed. William Wallace is in hiding. So William Wallace, you know, like Braveheart, right? He's in hiding, and the nobles north of the border have been forced into submission. Although he is a favourite for the Scottish throne, Robert the Bruce, played by Chris Pine, remains steadfast in his desire to end the occupation, and as his unease at the treatment of his subjects increases, plans for insurrection ferment. With the ruthless Prince of Wales as his foe, Robert quickly discovers that playing fair is not rewarded, and when the prince gives the decree to raise the dragon, I was like, what's that mean? Is this like Game of Thrones? But it's something entirely different. The time of chivalry is officially over, and it's a no-holds-barred fight for Scotland's existence. So, medieval film, swords and, you know, battles and horses and death and gore and guts. That's Outlaw King. And, excuse me, I still have a cold, so please do excuse me. But I'm kind of a sucker for that because I kind of grew up on films like that because my dad likes those kinds of films. So I have an affinity for this, for like brutal melee swords and hack and slay and whatever. And obviously I love films about rebellion, you know, fight the man, go up against the system and stuff, which is basically what this is. So you all probably know the idea, like the story of Braveheart, of William Wallace, who was leading the rebellion of the Scots against the English. And this is, as one of the other reviewers called it, Braveheart 2, the sequel. But that's not what the director wants to call it. So it was directed, what's his name, by David Mackenzie. I think we got to interview him yesterday. I think so. So this is shortly after the Braveheart stuff and William Wallace. So in this film, you actually see the consequences of William Wallace being captured and killed. And that kind of sparks what is happening in here and what Robert the Bruce does. And I'm not going to give you a history lesson there because I had heard the name Robert the Bruce, but I didn't really know the significance. I had heard of William Wallace because I'd watched Braveheart, but that's all. Like, I don't really know much about Scottish history. And I would advise you not to read up on it before you watch the film. Watch the film and then read up on it, which is what I've done. And I found that quite intriguing and informative. Because obviously the film is a work of fiction, so certain things have been embellished, certain things have been changed. You can't always be historically accurate all the time. So it's always better if you do check up on these things afterwards. The film is quite long, with 2 hours, well, it says here 2 hours and 12 minutes. I think the one at TIFF was 2 hours and 20, but there was infamously 20 minutes were cut, apparently. That's the rumor. Because the film showed at the Toronto International Film Festival. It reviewed horribly, abysmally. People were tearing it apart. And one of the things that they said is like, it's too long, it's lengthy, there's shit in there that you don't need, rah, rah, rah. And then I think I put this out like a few weeks ago on ILoveCinema. I was reporting on that apparently the cut that we're seeing at London Film Festival of Outlaw King will be roughly 20 minutes less in running time because they hope that it makes for a better film. So I've never actually seen the version that came out at the Toronto International Film Festival. I've only seen the London Film Festival version, and I think that version works really well. It's not perfect, far from it, but I was thoroughly engaged and entertained. And it's not just because of the action, but also with the character moments. Like, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is like, if I'm not emotionally engaged, then I usually have a problem with a movie, because if I don't care for at least one of the characters, then I just don't care. I might as well just sleep through your film. You know, it's like, oh, nice visuals. If I'm not emotionally engaged, it's not going to work. However, there's one character in this film that definitely got me engaged, and that is, I wanted to say Wallace, but it's not his name. It's what's his name? Robert the Bruce. Robert the Bruce's wife, second wife, played by Florence Pugh. And Florence Pugh, in case you don't know who that is, you need to check her out. She's amazing. Pugh as in P-U-G-H. She was Lady Macbeth in the film Lady Macbeth. And she's been in a lot of other different projects. She was in King Lear with Anthony Hopkins, which I think was an HBO movie. I haven't seen that yet. She's in the new AMC series, The Little Drummer Girl, which was also screening at London Film Festival. It's a series, but they showed the first 2 episodes, and she was phenomenal. She's always phenomenal. I've never seen her not be fantastic. The same is true in Outlaw King. She has such a small role in this film that it's kind of sacrilege. But it's a brawler, so fair enough. But what she does with the little screen time that she's given is just... It's just wow. Like, I don't know how she does it. She's, considering the time period that this is set in, you'd think, and she's obviously playing a very young woman. She is a very young woman. And we have Chris Pine, who, he's like 40 or something? 40, 45, I have no idea. And she marries him, right? And she is his equal. She's not young and fragile and intimidated. No, she knows exactly who she is, and she stands up to him, but not in like a kind of way. She knows exactly who she is. She's very confident, very assertive, and yeah, like the proverbial strong woman. And that is not usually something that you see in these kinds of films. And I was very surprised by that, which is why I was so gutted when she didn't show up to the red carpet, because I really would have loved to have asked her a few questions. But everyone was gushing about her. And yeah, as in like everyone she worked with, like the cast, the producers, the director, everyone's gushing about her. She's fantastic. And she's fantastic in this. And she gets to do some awesome stuff as well. She doesn't get to pick up a sword and kill anyone, but you know, she's awesome in her own right. And so obviously I'm drawn to female characters. I am female, what can I say? And she is just phenomenal anyway. And there's a lot of guts and gore happening in this as well. It's very brutal because that's just what the times were. It was very savagey. Like I said, William Wallace is getting killed in this. Not that you see it, but you see the consequences of it. Because back then, you know how they say hung, drawn, and quartered or something. So you see like parts of a body nailed to something going like, this is part of William Wallace's body. And you're like, what the fuck, man? And people get hanged and people get gutted. And then obviously in the actual battle sequences, there's like, everything is happening. Decapitations and blood spillage and gut spillage and arms and heads and legs and horses and just everything just goes flying and gets decapitated. Well, dismembered. Yeah, decapitated is only the head. So there's utter carnage, especially at the end of the film. And I did get a chance to talk to Mackenzie and one of the producers about it. And obviously I did ask, it's like about those 20 minutes. What were those 20 minutes? What was cut out? Can you give us some details? And they both said that most of the stuff they cut out, almost all of the stuff they cut out, was to do with the action sequences. And I was like, what, at the end? And she was like, no, in the middle. And I was like, interesting. I didn't think it was actually going to be action that they would have cut out. I thought it might be some slow character moments or something. But it apparently was action sequences. And there is a bit of maybe a bit of a lull or a bit of a dud, like in the middle, where you think there should probably be a bit more fighting going on, but there's not. So I'm not sure if that potentially... I think that was probably a good idea, because there's like a real lull in the middle of the film where, Robert the Bruce's campaign is not going very well. It's really hopeless. I was like, I'm really feeling for this fucker, seriously. So there's a bit where he just has like a bunch of men left, and he's trying to do something, and you're like, yeah, I don't need to see too much action here and too much battle sequences there. There's catastrophic stuff happening. He's losing important people as well, so it's not just cannon fodder. But it never really has an emotional impact. Even with some of the music is really trying to drive it home. It's like, this is really important that this person just died. And it's like, don't really care. Don't really know him that well. And then it goes kind of like checklisty, like with a lot of biopics and historical stuff. You have that. It's like, well, he went from A to B to C to D to E to F before he then goes on to do the thingy-majig. And we have to show all of these stations. And that's getting a bit tedious. And I think this is probably where they were cutting out a bunch of stuff. Because there's obviously, in the film, he's called the Outlaw King. So he's been outlawed. Him and his merry band of people are like Robin Hood, so to speak. So there's a lot of fighting and a lot of dying. And I've probably talked for like 2 hours again. I actually don't know what the time is because I'm recording on my watch. But overall, I really thought it was a really good film. Well, maybe not really, really good, but it's a decent film. And with just over 2 hours, 2 hours, 10 minutes, I think it works quite well. I love the cinematography. There are still scenes in the film that I think could be cut because they don't necessarily transport the narrative forward. But some of them are character scenes, even though I have to admit, it's like I didn't really feel much for Robert the Bruce, and I sometimes felt like he's putting all this shit on his family, his clan, and his followers just because he wants to be King of Scotland. The Shiznit joined! Hi, how are you? Talking about the Outlaw King. Spoiler free! So sometimes it did feel like he was forgetting that everything that he's doing, like his rebellion against King Edward, that was putting so much shit and pressure and death pretty much on people that were trying to support him. And it felt at times very selfish and egotistical. And I didn't have the, I didn't really have the understanding. Hey Misty, how you doing? I didn't have the understanding that he was doing this for selfless reasons, that he was just trying to save Scotland and to repel the repel the English, and do it for selfless reasons and try to be king just to keep his own people safe. Because obviously the English were not being very nice to the Scottish. It's this whole two-class system. It's like the English are up here, and if you're Scottish, then you're worth shit. You're worth fuck all. And that's obviously how they treated them. But I always felt that he was not doing it for his countrymen or his family. He was doing it for himself. And that is obviously something that I just can't get behind. And I really had a huge problem with that, which is why I was like, you know, if they just killed him, then everything would be over and we could go back to peace times. So it was like, on the one hand, I kind of want him to win. On the other hand, I'm like, just get over it. It's like, you can't have everything you want, you entitled stupid prick. Sorry, Scottish people. I know that you like Robert the Bruce, just like you like William Wallace. He's a very important political figure, a historical figure for Scotland that I was not aware of. So I think for that, the depiction in Outlaw King is pretty decent. I think Chris Pine does a really decent job at playing him, at a Scottish accent as well, even though I'm not the best judge when it comes to accents. I thought Florence Pugh was absolutely fantastic, and I loved, what's his name? Aaron Taylor-Johnson. He plays the Black Douglas, who is apparently a really well-known historical figure in Scotland of that time period as well. I had no idea, but he was one of the standout roles in this film as well, because he's pretty much a lunatic that you can get behind. He's someone that you kind of understand. Him and the wife, I understood the most, because the Douglas guy, he had nothing else to lose. He lost everything. And just by siding with Robert, and being loyal to him, he had a chance at potentially regaining his father's lands. So it was like, well, I am with him and I can regain this stuff, or I am with nobody and I will just die a penniless, unimportant person. So he was obviously really motivated to make Robert king and to make sure that he achieves what he's trying to achieve. And same for the wife as well. She's got some really good scenes in there that I don't really want to talk about because they might potentially be spoilers. But Florence Pugh's just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, alongside with Chris Pine, and then we've got James Cosmo, who plays his dad, the older Bruce, so to speak. All around, the actors were fantastic. The fight sequences are great. The guy who plays the Prince of Wales, what's his name? I think it's Billy Howell. He was phenomenal because he clearly has father issues, and you can kind of understand why he is the prick he is. But yeah, most of the characters I could sort of understand, even though I might not necessarily empathize with them. But you're going to watch this for the sprawling Scottish landscapes, the gory and gutsy action sequences. And if you're like me and you like to rebel against the system a bit, and you want to go up against, like, rules are meant to be broken and I don't like to be suppressed and stuff, then I think there's definitely that side of things as well, because the Scottish people, obviously, sooner or later they're going to rise up against the English oppressors, which is just natural, I think. And that is definitely what is in this film, and you kind of feel for that. But I think they could have done more. They could have made it more patriotic. They could have made it more emotional. The English are depicted horrendously in this film, and yet I didn't feel like Robert the Bruce was thinking of his countrymen first and foremost. I thought he was thinking of himself and himself becoming king, and that kind of tainted my enjoyment of his campaign and of his rebellion a bit, which I think if you'd given it a tiny bit of a different gist, would have been a lot better. Love the action, even though I thought it was insane. Like, at the end, there's obviously a huge battle, just like there always is in these kinds of films. And I always go, like, how does anyone know who's friend and foe? Like, they all wear different colors. Like, it's like, how do you know that he's on your side and he's not? They look exactly alike. So it's like, I would have probably just been killed within like 5 seconds. I was like, are you a friend? I'm dead. Yeah, it's like, or I would have killed someone, like, and he would have gone like, why'd you stab me in the back? It's like, I thought you were a foe. I'm sorry. I take it back. It's like, you can't take it back. You just killed me. It's like, yeah, useless. I was like, I have no idea. Can we just color code people? But yeah, there's some good stuff happening in there, and I'm not going to give that away. It's really, really, like, it's carnage. It's horrible. Like, I'm not like, what's the word? Not flimsy. I'm not like, ugh, but I was kind of going, oh my God, that's a bit much. And yeah, people are hung, drawn, and quartered, and there's like guts ripped out, and like, yeah, stuff, savagery. So overall, I enjoyed it, but it's not a great film. But I think, judging from what I heard out of TIFF, this is not as disastrous as they made it out to be. So either I enjoyed the film a lot more, or it is the 20 minutes that were cut out made such a huge difference that I didn't think it was a waste of time. But I'm usually someone who likes these kinds of films. So if you're, I don't know what that just was. So if you're into those kinds of films, if you enjoy the medieval setting and hack and slay and action, I think you're probably gonna enjoy this film. And I think, is that the last one we had? Oh, forgot about this one. That was the one I haven't found on here. This was called The White Crow, number 21. I've watched this earlier today. This is directed by Ray Fiennes. I'm sorry, I thought The Outlaw King was the last one. And it's about, in early 1960s Paris, the Cold War may be raging, but Soviet authorities have decided to send their finest dance troupe to the City of Light to demonstrate the cultural refinement behind the Iron Curtain. Though the Kirov Ballet is set to wow audiences, one man causes a sensation that reverberates far beyond the stage. The electrifying young dancer Rudolf Nureyev. Devastatingly handsome and culturally ravenous, Nureyev, this guy, Ukrainian dancer Oleg Ivenko, immediately falls in love with the city. Much to the annoyance of his KGB minders, he makes daily pilgrimages to the Louvre and frequents the city's jazz bars with the Chilean heiress, which leads to pivotal awakening. As David Hare's script zigzags across time, we discover Nureyev's origins. His birth on a Trans-Siberian train, his youth and early schooling, where his temper and uncompromising attitude marked him as troublemaker, and the initial stirrings of his sexuality. That's what it is. Now, I enjoyed this film to a certain extent. It starts out really strong. With the birth on the train, and you're like, what the hell is going on? The cinematography looks great. Obviously, Ralph Fiennes directs it. He also has a small part in it as one of the ballet teachers. He speaks Russian. I'm not sure how good the accent is because I have no idea. I don't speak Russian. However, one of the things, like if you've... Oh, I haven't talked about Suspiria, have I? I think I totally forgot Suspiria. Yeah. Bollocks. Sorry, I just brain fart. Because this film obviously is about a ballet dancer. It's about a ballet troupe. So I was thinking of ballet dancing, which there's a lot of dancing in the Suspiria remake as well, which is why I was thinking of that. And I've seen it earlier this week, and I was like, why am I not talking about this? So I will quickly push that in because I forgot about that. This one could work because it's about the difference between the East and the West during the time of the Iron Curtain in the 60s, obviously quite a pivotal time with the Cuban Missile Crisis and stuff. I think it's actually in 61, isn't it? Yeah, it says early 60s. I think in the film it says 61. I think that is when they started building the Berlin Wall. So it was quite different now, wasn't it? But the problem I had with it, first of all, the film felt really long, and it's just over 2 hours. And there's a lot of ballet in this, because obviously it's about a ballet troupe. But there's a lot of ballet dancing in it. And I think that could potentially alienate viewers, because it alienated me. I was like, after a while, I was like, I don't get it. I'm just sick of seeing people dance ballet. Can we just get back to the story? Like, you're not furthering the narrative or the story by showing me him dancing ballet. It's not like there's anything happening during that ballet dance that says anything about him as a character or about any of the other people involved or whatever it is. There's nothing pushing the narrative forward why I see him dance ballet. So I'm like, why the hell is it in there? I get that he's a ballet dancer. Can't we just move on from that? That's the reason why he was allowed to leave the Soviet Union and come to Paris with everyone else in his ballet troupe. So the flashbacks are really good to him being born, to him being a young child, him meeting his father for the first time, and then, you know, a lot of other things happen. And this is interspersed with him being this guy. But the problem with him being this guy is that this guy is an arrogant fucking prick. He's so fucking full of himself that I was like, I just want to slap you left, right, and center. What the fuck is wrong with you? He is so unlikable because he's such an arrogant prick that I just didn't feel for him. Even later on when something more important happens, I'm like, I don't really care if you succeed or fail because you're an asshole. And it was interesting that Ralph Fiennes decided to make an arrogant asshole his lead character. I just don't understand. And then obviously on top of an unemotionally involving lead, you have a lot of what I think is alienating long ballet sequences that do not help push the narrative along. And I was quite frankly bored out of my mind. I mean, it was quite comfortable in the cinema, even though it was cold. Like, some of these screens are really freezing, but I always have my hoodie, and I've got my leather jacket on top of that. And I was just literally going like, I'm just like half dozing off. And I was like, okay, and half dozing off. The guy next to me was like, every 2 minutes, he clearly had a good time. I was like, this was a snooze, an absolute bore fest. Some of it looked really nice, especially the flashbacks I thought were a lot of fun. because they had a different type of cinematography. It was more high contrast, black and whitish, definitely highly desaturated, which I'm a huge fan of. So I found that a lot more appealing. But the lead is just so... He could be engaging because he's handsome. Like, look at him. He could play a Russian Clark Kent or something. He's really, really pretty. But the character was such an asshole. I just couldn't get over it. Okay, and with that, I will have to talk to you about Suspiria, which I, for whatever reason, totally forgot to put on my list, and I have no idea why the heck that happened, because it's obviously quite a big film to talk about. So, sorry, but last but not least, I want to talk about Suspiria, which is a horror movie, and it's interesting that the big press screenings always happen at like 8:30 to 9 in the morning. So this is quite a long movie with like 2.5 hours. So it started at 8:30. Not the best time to have a really horrible, horrific horror movie screening for press who is just barely waking up and who haven't even probably had coffee and breakfast yet. You know, it was like interesting choice. This is a remake of Argento's Suspiria from the, what was it, the 70s, I think. And I had never seen the original. I didn't know anything about Suspiria. I didn't know it was a horror movie. All I knew was Tilda Swinton's in it. And I'm a huge fan of Tilda Swinton. So, of course, I'm going to line up and watch Suspiria. And Dakota Johnson is in it. And who else? Chloe Grace Moretz. But yeah, it's pretty much Tilda Swinton and Dakota Johnson. So, though some key plot points remain the same, this is no remake of the 77 Giallo. Unfolding in Berlin in the same year Argento's film was made, it finds American Susie Bannion, played by Dakota Johnson, auditioning for a prestigious international dance school. She's untutored, but has the kind of ferocious commitment to her dance that the strange mistresses who run the all-female school are looking for. In particular, she entrances the precise Madame Blanc, Tilda Swinton, who is both an exacting tutor and elegant den mother. Is Susie finally the one to dance the mysterious folk? At the same time, students are disappearing, and it's apparent that some ancient wickedness lurks in the bowels of the school. Swinton and Johnson are incandescent at the heart of a fabulous, mostly exclusive female cast. Now, that's one of the things I really liked about Suspiria. Huge female cast. Like 99% of this film is female, which is fantastic. And this is obviously something I really, really liked and appreciated. Excuse me. I'm not a huge fan of horror movies, especially the gutsy, gory kind. I'm more into like The Quiet Place. But I loved Tilda Swinton, and that's basically the reason why I watched that. The film itself is quite interesting, but it takes a long time to get going. A long time. Considering it's 2.5 hours, you could have cut out shitloads of stuff in the first hour. It takes too long to get going. It starts quite interestingly with Chloe Grace Moretz being one of the students who ran away. And she runs to a psychiatrist who kind of gets entangled in everything. And she basically tells him that there are witches and people are talking to her and blah, blah, blah. And he does the psychiatrist thing going like, she's got delusions and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to tell you too much, even though it's pretty much like Argento's stuff, even though it has a different interpretation to it. And I think potentially a bit better. And then we get Dakota Johnson as Susie rocking up at school, and she's kind of like trying to get in there. And funny enough, she's like untutored, unschooled, but she's really fantastic at what she does. And it's like, you know, that raised not just one, but both of my eyebrows. And I was like, that's just weird. But it's explained later on. And I was just like, that's, yeah, it didn't sit well with me. And then Tilda Swinton is being ethereal and weird, as she always is, and just fascinating and captivating. But the plot takes forever to get going and to get interesting and really engage me. And I was like, it's 8:30 in the morning and I'm tired. And nothing's happening. And then, like with The White Crow, the Ray Fiennes directorial debut, this one, yeah, just like with this one. Suspiria has a lot of dance sequences. Very artsy-fartsy, interpretive dance, weird, pretentious bullshit. That the first few times they did the dance, I thought it looked really cool, the way it was choreographed, the way it was shot. I was really into it. But once you've seen it like 5 times and then it still keeps on showing you the fucking dance, I'm like kind of over it. So it got a bit boring, and then it got really annoying. And then I was like, can we just get over this now? Can we just move on to the actual plot of the movie? I have to, however, point out that there are some amazing dance sequences in this. And my absolute favorite is a very grotesque one, because there's something happening in there. It's a horror movie, people die, and in very gruesome, horrendous ways, right? I'm not going to say exactly what happens, but let's just say that there's a dancer, or an actor dancer, who gets to do one of the most outlandish, grotesque, bizarre, horrendously atrocious dance sequences I've ever seen, as in like phenomenal from a technical dance point of view. Not that I'm a dancer, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I was just watching her doing things like that. There were arms and hands and wrists and ribs and legs and feet and heads and necks in constellations to each other that should not be normal. And it was like the dance of death, basically, you know, because that person was being tortured and was being killed. And that was obviously horrendous, but I couldn't help but marvel at the impeccable brilliance of this dancing actor who managed to pull this physicality off. And it's quite a long sequence. And I was just staring, and this was also in the IMAX screen, so it was huge, right? And I was just staring at it, and I was like, I am so in awe of this person. I have no idea who she was. I'm so in awe of this person pulling off this grotesquely fucked up torture dance that I'm just mesmerized. Like I can't look away. It was so brilliant that it was like the highlight of the movie. And I think it just I never really got off that. You know, it was like this was the absolute highlight, and nothing else that happens throughout the film ever came close. And it's phenomenal just for that. I think it's like a 5-minute sequence or something where she's dancing in a really grotesque way, where pretty much stuff is happening to her body and she has to physically show that while she's still dancing. And yeah, shoulders go in ways they shouldn't, and arms and just like everything. And she's just like a muddled mess at the end. And it's just like still moving. And I was like, how can she still be moving? This is just so absolutely brilliant that for that alone, you have to go and see the film. And I know this sounds really weird, but I think Tilda Swinton does a really good job. She plays pretty much what she usually plays, some ethereal, otherworldly, weirdo creep. She's horribly underused in this. She doesn't get a lot to do, which is pretty much a crime. Dakota Johnson, I'm not a fan of hers, but she's really good in this. I believed her character. I was very, very surprised by what a great dancer she was. She was a good actress. I believed everything that she did, and I was quite engaged and captivated by her, which means that she did a really good performance, because I usually don't care for her. And a lot of the other actresses were really good as well. One of the things that irked me about the film, and that it's going to sound a bit bad, because I'm a huge fan of Chloe Grace Moretz. I was talking about her in regards to The Miseducation of Cameron Post, which I think is a phenomenal film. And she is absolutely fantastic in it. And I think she's fantastic pretty much in everything that she does. She's a great young actor. She is supposed to speak German. Excuse me, I'm still a bit sick. She's supposed to speak German in this film, and she does speak German. I am German, and I needed subtitles. Because I was like, what the fuck? What? Like, she starts talking short sentences, and I was like, wow, her German's pretty decent. I can understand what she's saying. And then she says stuff later on that is more convoluted and longer, and I was like, what? What did she just say? Without the subtitles, I would have not had a single chance to understand what she was trying to say. That took me out of the film, because she starts out this film like that. She does the first 5 minutes, and I was like, is she supposed to be German? Because she speaks German and English, and her German's really shit, and her English is proper American. So is she playing an American that also speaks a bit of German, or is she supposed to be a German who also speaks English? Turns out she's playing an American who lives in Germany, so she speaks a tiny bit of German. So I can forgive her really shit German. Then later on, Tilda Swinton speaks German. She also speaks French, but which I can't talk about because I don't speak French, but she speaks German. And I was like, she speaks German as well as I speak English, I think. You can tell that she's not a native German because of the way that she pronounces things. And her, not her sentence structure, but just like, you know, the melody of the language is just not entirely there. There's an accent there that is clearly foreign, but everything she said, I understood. And that's not an easy feat. So I was like, well, Tilda Swinton can do it. Why couldn't Chloe Grace Moretz do it? She has a lot less dialogue than Tilda Swinton does in German. But Tilda Swinton's German was really good. So I was very surprised by that. I think she spoke German in another film. But I'm usually like very finicky when it comes to that, because it's like, obviously I am an actor. I am German. And how often people tell me to speak in a German accent when I speak English for a project. And I'm like, this is a German accent, because guess what? I am German, a native German, and I'm speaking English. Hence, this is a German accent. Someone German who speaks English. But they always want, you know, like the World War II bullshit. And yeah, it's just, ugh. It's one of those things that I'm a bit finicky about. It's like, and you want German actors, you want people who speak German fluently, but you're not hiring real Germans. And I'm like, come on, why not? But I get it. You need a Tilda Swinton. And I get it. Chloe Grace Moretz is supposed to, you know, be an American who knows a couple of words in German. So I was like, I forgave that. But overall, Guadagnino's Suspiria. Is it Guadagnino? Yeah, Guadagnino. His Suspiria remake, if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen this. I was not very enamored with it. I thought it was overly long and pretentious and artsy-fartsy with all the dancing. It just wouldn't stop with the dancing. It reminded me of Entebbe with this whole like weird dance sequence that was parallel montaged into everything. I was like, what's up with that? This one was done a bit better. It looked a lot more cinematic, sorry, is the word I'm looking for. It looked a lot more cinematic. But, you know, after you've seen a dance sequence 5 times, you're like, can we just move on? Because, like, repetition, boredom. So, it's too long. There's too much fat on it. There are things that need trimming, especially in the first half. It's not very scary, considering it's supposed to be a horror movie. Later on, there is some imagery that some people might call scary. It was just bizarre and grotesque and potentially ew, but it's not scary. You know, a thriller is scary. Nowadays, horror movies nowadays are just not scary anymore. They're all just about guts and gore. That's not scary. Something like A Quiet Place is scary. Saw is not scary. It's just icky. And there's a difference, even though both are apparently horror movies. So for me, Suspiria didn't work, despite a really good cast, because it's too long. Hardly anything happens for long periods of time. The final resolution was quite interesting and got me, like, my ears went like, I was like, okay, I'm interested again. What's going on? And then the movie was over, and I'm like, I want to know more. So I kind of want a sequel, but I want it to be shorter and more concise and to the point and actually explaining shit. Because some of the characters are quite interesting. And I was like, I want to know more because you're not really telling us anything. Because there are some revelations happening at the end, and you're like, really? Okay, whatever. So he's clearly setting up a sequel. Whether he gets it depends on how well Suspiria obviously is going to be received at the box office. I'm not sure how well it's going to do. It might do well because obviously you've got some stars attached to it. It's a remake of a film that a lot of people like, or that at least a lot of people will have heard of. But I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster. So I'm not sure if there's going to be a sequel. I would watch a sequel just because I'm curious. I want to know what his idea was for all the stuff that happened at the end. But overall, the film is too long and too lengthy and has pacing issues, and it's just a bit too boring and repetitive, and it's just not scary. So it's not a good horror movie, unfortunately. So I was a bit disappointed. And with that, I think I'm going to call it a night. So I've talked about over a dozen of the films that I've watched at London Film Fest. The highlights definitely this time around. Am I going the right way? Were The Favourite and Destroyer. Oh, this was another favourite. Wild Rose, Destroyer, and The Favourite. Are absolutely fantastic films. Really, really enjoyed them. Also check out The Old Man and the Gun if you get a chance. I will be putting this up on YouTube, and if you follow me on Twitter, Melanie_Radloff, RADLOFF for Foxtrot, or just go for ILoveCinema vlog, all one word. Find that on Twitter. Everything is on there. You can find my personal Twitter. And I will be tweeting about this episode being up on YouTube. There will be a time index and an overview of all the films that I've been mentioning here. So you don't have to watch it's probably going to be 2 hours again. And then you can just quickly zoom to the movie that you want me to talk about, and then just find that. Next week, ILoveCinema should be in the regular time schedule on a Thursday at 8 p.m. again. LFF ends on Sunday. On Sunday, yeah. So London Film Festival will be over on Sunday. So a bunch of the films, the last few films that I will have seen, will be part of ILoveCinema next week on Thursday. And I will let you know what I think. And I will also try to see some of the regular screening films like First Man and El Royale and hopefully The Wife, because I think it's not going to be in cinemas for much longer. So stay tuned for that. Find me on Twitter, Let's Talk Movies. Follow me on Instagram so you don't miss out on anything that I've seen. I will probably going to put most of the reviews up the way I've done for London Film Festival now, with like a little poster and a little like 140 character kind of a review. But definitely check back next Thursday for ILoveCinema, and I will hopefully bring back the news and bring back new on DVD and Netflix UK. So I will see you next Thursday. Have a good time. Hopefully I'll see you at LFF. If not, maybe see you at the cinema. Have a good weekend. Enjoy. Stay safe.